The challenge for people is they don't want to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with your opinion, my opinion. It's just being open to the discussion and letting that be. And that's all it is. I'm not trying to convince you or change your thoughts. We're just talking. And I think that's the difficult. People are taking on the idea that you're trying to change my way of thinking. Instead of just,
that's when the pushback comes.
Yeah, that's when they get all defensive. You're like, I'm not trying to. It's like when you have talks about religion. You're like, I'm not trying to convert you.
Yeah,
trying to enlighten you. Conversation.
Yeah. I do want to get back into buying the block. Yeah. So, what made you guys want to start buying the block? And I feel like this is like a new terminology in the Black community, because I see it on social media a lot. Buy the block, go to the neighborhood and buy up some properties. So what made you guys, and how long have you been doing it?
I think we moved over there about 2000.
Yeah, we moved over right around 2000.
And we moved from Northwest Greensboro off of, sort of Westridge, West Friendly, moved over.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We had $200,000 and $300,000 houses over there. Yeah. And so we was on this Black advocacy thing, but we was living amongst white folks in a way where, not that we weren't comfortable, but, we say, well, we talk this and we talk that, but we live over here. So, there was a shift in our thinking. So we decided to move over there, and we bought a house from Skip Austin, to be honest with you.
It was a little house.
Yeah, we bought a house. And then when we first got in it, I think Deena and I, we was looking through these magazines trying to fix it up. We went to New York and bought all these silk curtains and all that stuff. And we didn't know what we was doing. We knew how to decorate a house, but it was the old conventional way. Yeah. But over the years, we have kind of saw some things that would kind of help us change. And I was the one, basically, my mom moved with us. Well, my mother, she moved to Greensboro, and I ended up trying to find her a place to stay. And so we ended up renting a house like 4 houses down. But later on, we was able to buy it. And then my wife, and now she's going to jump on board, and so it's kind of sell rapidly. Because, I was piecemealing buying a house here for 10 grand, 14,000, 30,000, and, we put some resources in it, fix it up.
And we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have good credit. And one of the things is we were also, just spending a lot of time learning about our history and asking ourselves, just really curious. It's just like, why do we still have South and Southeast and Northeast Greensboro is predominantly Black, it's predominantly poor, it's a food desert, a school desert, a housing desert, an environmental desert, a public safety desert. And it's just like, why is this? And because we know that there's nothing wrong with Black people. We know that there's some things that have been done historically and so structurally and systemically that you don't undo them just because you have access now. Right. It doesn't correct centuries and decades of not having access. And when your poverty is concentrated the way ours is in our census tract, it perpetuates generational poverty because there's just not enough resources to help enough people for the community to transition. Now, people have been successful and moved out, but it still creates these hot spots, low performing schools, unsafe neighborhoods, substandard housing, health issues, all of those kinds of environmental burdens and things like that. So I couldn't figure out why were Black people able to do such amazing things, like 70 years ago, creating communities like Hayti in Durham, another Black Wall Street, or Collier Heights in Atlanta, or Ransom Place in Indianapolis, Sistrunk in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, these thriving independent Black communities, grocery stores like Wilmington, North Carolina, I think had like 25 grocery stores and 23 were Black owned. How can you do that in 1898? And in 2023, so they did so much with so much less, and we're doing so much less with so much more. Yeah, and it's like, what is wrong with some of us? Because some of us have been able to And I tell people, it's like, you can't income, zip code, or degree your way out of racism. You just relocate it, you know, because just because you've been successful doesn't mean you don't experience it anymore. I mean, we're seeing every day black people getting their houses appraised. You know, you might have a $500,000 house, but because you have the wrong pictures on the wall, it's going to come in at $350,000. Yeah, that's going to set you back.
That has happened.
It's happening to black lawyers. You know, black women are more likely to lose their highly educated black women, more likely to lose their lives and their babies' lives during childbirth, and white women that only have a high school diploma. So you can be successful, but it doesn't mean you have gotten out of this racial arrangement in the country. So, so anyway, we just wanted to figure out, we've seen so many efforts fail, you know, the city and nonprofit organizations, people have made a effort to do something and they have failed, and people keep doing them. You know, affordable housing is like, that's all we got. Right. And so we wanted to deconcentrate poverty. We wanted to build a thriving, independent, healthy black community where culture is intact. We wanted to do what they did and more and better. And we don't want anybody displaced. We don't want anybody to leave this neighborhood because of taxes or because of anything. We don't want anybody to leave. And we wanted to stop gentrification.
And what's the name of the neighborhood?
Our neighborhood is sort of like the Goral Street neighborhood. So it's Goral and Martin. And we're also, we have a footprint now on Old Ashboro, which is Whittington, MLK, and Julian. So we've just bought property and renovated that. We bought Nettie Code's house. And I don't know if you know Nettie, but Nettie was an amazing organizer here. That's the Nettie Code Apartments on MLK is named after her. But she kind of was a real mentor to us. And her house, she died of lung cancer several years ago. She's been a real leader with the Greensboro Health Disparities Collaborative, looking at closing the racial gap in treatment completion between black and white patients with lung and breast cancer. And so she was just a real leader in anti-racism around here. So she died. And her house was just in a state of disrepair. People were like using the bathroom in the backyard. People were sleeping on the front porch. It was just a dumping ground for trash. And so we're almost like in the final stage of the rehab. So if you drive down MLK at 706 MLK, and it's gorgeous.
Okay. Is it already listed?
Not yet. We don't really list the houses because
I looked, but I can't find anything the projects that you guys are doing.
Yeah, well, we can give you the address of them, but we have so many friends, and our kids have friends that are just like, you got another house, so we don't have to put them on the market because they're and there's so many people, and we want people in the neighborhood that value the neighborhood, that want to live there, that want to invest there. You know, they talk about the broken window syndrome. It's like, oh well, when one window breaks, another one breaks, and then things start to decline. But we also know when you fix the window, then other people fix their window, and then it starts to improve.
Right.
So we're on that upswing.
One of our models is we may buy the house, we'll buy the house, we'll rehab it, and if you can't get financing, we'll build it just the way you want it. And our sons, they're realtors and brokers, so they help them get their financing. And so we'll put them in the house until their finances kick in, and then they can just transition with the financial part of it, because we've already put everything out there.
Yeah, and the buyers are young black men, young black couples, you know.
Is there a criteria they have to meet to?
It all depends on, you know, like what they want in the house. If you want a $300,000 house and you make this much money, this is what you have to do. Right. So they work with them on that.
That's good.
You know, if you can only afford a $225,000 house, and you're going to have to cut down on the granite countertops and maybe do butcher block or whatever, you know, it's just up to them.
We still do that for them, and they may have to come out of pocket. They still may do their financing with the bank, but they still may owe a little bit extra to get all the extra on the side as well.
So we would help them with the extra financing to get in the house.
Okay. Well, I got a question, because I used to live on this side of town. I purchased a house back in 2004 with the Willow Oaks.
Yeah.
And I was a part of the Neighborhood Watch, and I went in so hard trying to change things, but I burnt out, because if you don't have enough people to influence that area, it's just like your little piece, you're this small in a big circle. So what you're doing is not, it doesn't have enough effect to make the change. Yeah. And so I end up moving out of the neighborhood. So for you guys, I think this is a great idea that you're doing, because you're bringing people in there. So how are you convincing them like it's gonna take time and it's gonna change because
That's
you still got
right there.
right, because you still got the bums walking down the street and maybe some gunshots and
change takes time. It's not overnight. It didn't get that way overnight, so it's not going to change.
And it's so discouraging. For me, it was discouraging after 6 years over there, and I ended up leaving.
Yeah.
But how do you go about?
Well, my relationship with men and women in the neighborhood that don't have it all together is one of those where, in most cases, they used to knock at my door. Can I get $1 or something like that? Okay. And I didn't discourage them from that. I would give them that, but then I started saying, hey, look, you got to do some work for me.
Exactly.
Let's come help me cut some grass. Oh, yeah, John, I'll come back and I'll do this. And so I was just lending money, or not even lending money. I knew I wasn't going to get it back. They would say, let me borrow. I said, okay, you can borrow, but this is how you can work it off. And so that was one way of doing things that way.
Yeah, I think what you experienced, Tiffany, is that it is hard when it's just one person. And so, like John said, that first we moved his mother in on the block, and then our son moved across the street from us. Well, first down the street. And then I convinced my best friend. I mean, part of it is that when our kids were sort of raised, they went to Undoing Racism workshops every summer. So they understood why they're going to see people walk down the street during working hours, that you can see beyond and past the people and their individual condition into the environment that ensures you're going to see that all the time. And it's not about a lack of accountability. It's just to say that there are things that have been done to people that have caused some things. And so their comfort and belief in the rebuilding of our neighborhoods was a factor in that too. So when we just started getting there and, we had to convince people. I had to convince my best friend. He had to convince his best friend, because your best friend's girlfriend was just like, lived over, off of West Market, and was just like, what? It's like, I grew up over there. And the message was, get out of there.
Yes.
Not go back. And so, and then and then after about a year of being there, everybody's just like, this was the best decision I ever made, because
really?
I have some of my friends that graduated with me from A&T that live in Philly, New Jersey. John, get me a house because we ready to move now.
That's good.
People knock on the door wanting a house, and it's just like we get them as fast as we can. But it is a beautiful community. And, my parents, my mom's house, my father died, but is still in Northwest Greensboro. And every time I go over there, because my sister bought my mom's house, every time I go over there, there's a tension and a pressure, because as soon as I turn on the street and I see, a couple walking their dog, I'm like, are they going to look up? Are they going to speak? Should I wave? Should I not wave? Should I turn down my music? What kind of signs am I going to see in the yard? Any flags over here? It is. And it's just, and nobody's done anything mean or ugly to me. But I just, I was standing outside, there's like 3 people. I couldn't even finish my conversation. Like, how you doing? People wave and they affirm and they see you. And people do borrow a cup of sugar, and the little one of our neighbors is raising her great niece, just through some circumstances, and she's on a fixed income. And so I was sitting in the hair braiding place last Saturday because we get her hair done. And so she called today. She's going roller skating. So she needed $10. So she came over today. But that's what we do.
In the community, I think that's the biggest part, that you are right where they can touch you. And they can actually experience what you all are pushing out there. So it's like you're educating them as well as you're being right there to where you're not just, as you mentioned earlier, you're not talking all of this and then you're driving off, 20, 30, 100 miles away. Where you're up on the hill looking down. Like, no, you're right there in the community with them. And that presence is, I'm sure, is really good to inspire not just your friends, but the people who are there. And you mentioned it earlier about gentrification, because every block that starts off like that is being eaten up and bought and then rebuilt, because they see how prime that area is, and it's getting us to realize where you at is a very high value location.
Absolutely.
It's just getting them to visually see that, and I love the fact that you're pushing that out there to them.
Well, and we believe in, we think mixed income neighborhoods. So, you want to live in a big house, you can live in a big house here. Right. You don't have to live in a big house somewhere else. You can have the house of your dreams right here.
Right.
You can hear A&T's band play, when it's that season.
Wonderful.
It is.
I do miss that. Like you can hear every time they have a home game.
Yeah.
You can hear it. And then what we would do, now I'm having flashbacks because it was some great parts of the community when I did live over in Willow Oaks. Because we would do a cookout when they're having a game at A&T because you could hear the music play.
Yeah.
So it was like you was there tailgating, but you're at your house.
A porch party.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about Barney and Sugar, I mean, I knew every single one of my neighbors on the block.
Yeah.
And I missed it because, I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but it reminds me of when I was younger. And that's how it was. The block, everyone on the block knew you, so you could not just do whatever.
Yeah,
everyone knew you. But everyone spoke to each other, and it was that camaraderie that was built from house to house, all up and down the block, and everyone again. You don't see that nowadays, and I like that you all are recreating that,
bringing it back.
Well, we have our sons. Like our youngest son, he and his fiance just bought a house from us across the street, and then our other older son lives on the other side of the street, and so we got two kids on the street with us, and. Oh, we have our third son, our oldest son. He lives in one of the properties, and so
is it all boys? 3 boys?
Yeah, my daughter lives in D.C., but she likes because she has a house in D.C., but she moved in a very challenging neighborhood. She bought a house in D.C. in a neighborhood. She called me not long ago, and there was a drive-by, and she was just like, she's peeping out the window and just FaceTiming me. And I worry about her, but at the same time, we kind of taught them, it's just like, I don't want you to be unsafe. And we have to figure out how to be safe and be a part of the thing we say is important to us and that we value. And so, I'm just like, lock your doors and take precautions. Call me when you've got to walk from the driveway to the house, and stuff like that, and be a part of rebuilding this community. So, and I have friends. It's like, well, I would move over there, but I got kids.
Yeah, that's me. Like I'm really thinking about it. I'm like, I got my 11-year-old, and like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, we moved our kids over when they were in middle school.
So what do you do with that?
It's the norm.
Well, I mean,
all their friends came over to our place.
Yeah,
and I mean, we were always busy going everywhere else, but they love where they live. Their friends came over and spent nights over their weekends
all the time. So. We had a house full. But it was the neighborhood, where the candy was. It's a neighborhood where, and some kids just, moms would drop them off, and sometimes we'd have to call them, but. People were stressed out, and stuff like that. So our kids built like incredible relationships, They got a lot of swag too. I was just like, I'm like, good, they can dance. They can, they're just cool kids. They know how to relate, and I love the culture and their flavor. I love it. There's a brotherhood, a sisterhood, there's a young culture, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And they see the possibility because they're just, people aren't creative. They're just sort of handed the same mindset. And if you don't know that it's been done, you won't know you can do it.
Right.
And so for them to be a part of the revitalization of that and the rebuilding of that, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, this is history in the making. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to go back to how this all began. Like what
the journey, the story behind
what ignited your fire to actually be a part of change? Did this come together, or this was an individual thing before y'all got together? Because it seemed like y'all are so on the same accord with the mission.
I think we were both learning a lot, and we were going through a lot of consciousness stuff at the time. And I think we both felt like hypocrites. It's like, we keep talking about, Black empowerment and all this stuff, but we weren't a part of that really. We would volunteer and give and help out and do those kind of things. But there's just some disconnect. We just weren't proximate to the people that we said we were a part of and the culture that we cared about. So I think so we found a house. We just decided to move.
Okay, so
because where we live wasn't nice.
Okay, so because the work you do is still training for diversity and and then you doing contract work. I mean, how did this happen? Like,
because I know you mentioned earlier that you was doing the houses, and then you came in and kind of catapulted.
Well, he was mostly doing commercial.
Yeah. Like Union Square right here. I was one of the contractors that erected that building.
And you came out of A&T?
I graduated from A&T.
Pride.
And UNCG, that new student rec building. We built that. The Hayes-Taylor Y that used to be on the corner right there. They moved, they sold that property, and they moved down the street. And the same team that built Union Square was myself and at the time was Rittenbach. And so we built the Hayes-Taylor YMCA as well.
So it was just through conversations and some consciousness that we were just like, it's time, we need to, and we both were in agreement about moving there. And, we moved in and we just, we would just do one little thing at a time. We'd put in a ceiling fan, change the porch.
we never thought one time that we shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Even when we first got there, it was a distressed area. We had guys selling drugs on the corner, girls, women selling themselves, but that didn't bother us because I knew I could relate to them in such a way where, eventually I said, hey, look, y'all got to take it down the street. We got children here that's in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I didn't disrespect them. I didn't put no demands on them. I said, if we see you, the police see you.
Yeah, you spoke to them like a person.
Yeah.
So they went down the street. But if they ever needed anything, they would have asked me.
Well, how was you so relatable?
Well, you're relatable because you grew up in these kind of situations.
Oh, you grew up in the.
But I also, I went to prison.
Oh.
And so when I went to prison, before I went to prison, I had houses, I had a car dealership, but it was a blessing in disguise because I was out here running 100 miles an hour, but I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I had a lot of money and didn't know how to invest it. But when I went to prison, I went 2.5 years. From every day I was in there, I knew what the game plan was for me to do when I got out. She and I communicated almost every day. I wrote 2 letters to her every day. I wrote one in the morning and one before I laid down. And I drew a little sketch picture of a scene where it was me and her. I had the children and I had a dog. Yeah. And then I had a business.
It was like stick figures.
We were standing in front of my business, which was
car detailing.
No, it was a Barnes Belzman. And then it was down to the spot on the dog eye. I put a spot on the dog eye. And she put that on the refrigerator. And one day we looked at it and said, this came true. The business, the children,
the dog,
even with the spot on the eye.
No.
And I call a lot of people Soldier because that was the name of that dog. Soldier, he was
tough.
One of my smartest pets that I ever had. But yeah.
That's amazing.
That is.
Not so much relatable that I was living super in poverty, but I went to A&T. And I've seen all walks of life. And I grew up in a little town in Sampson County, North Carolina, in the tobacco fields.
Okay.
And it was called Garland, North Carolina. But, my wife said I talk too much when it comes to having relationships. I never meet someone that I don't know. So we just participate in conversation, and she said, well, don't let him talk you to death. But I just have that way I communicate with folks. So
I think he also believes in the brotherhood. I mean, he just respects, we don't condone what people are doing, but we think that something can be done about that. Starts with relationships. I like that, and then it keeps you safe too, because people leave them alone.
They're gonna look out for you.
They do,
right? Because there's
don't bother them.
Yeah.
No one stole anything. We've left our door unlocked accidentally. Packages on the porch.
Look,
nobody has ever gone through our cars. No one has ever taken anything off our porch. Nothing.
Okay. But you treat the fact that, like I was saying earlier, you talk to the person, the individual. You were, like you said, you're not condoning behavior, but you also realize this is still a person. Yeah. Because behavior is based off
got a story.
Right,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they've gone through, what drove them into that, into what they're currently doing and where they are mentally. That has so much to do with it. And just hearing the journey, going to prison and realizing, like you were saying, I had all these things going for me. Now I end up here, but this is not what I'm looking for. Oh, yeah. Like, this is not for me.
That's right.
And you hung in there.
That's what I was saying.
You saw the potential that was there in here. And so with that, I always want to, as far as my curiosity is, within all of that, was there any point where it's, this is not going to work, or maybe we should rethink this approach?
You don't even know how to think like that. It's just like breathing oxygen.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it. It just happens naturally.
Yeah. No, because from day one, you know what's so interesting is that there are people who are without shelter in our neighborhood. There are people who have substance abuse issues. And, you know, they walk by all the time and they love what we're doing with the neighborhood. And they tell you, it's like, man, I love what you're doing. Because people want to live in a nice neighborhood, even though they have issues, even though they have things going on. And they respect that because it's just like, this is our neighborhood and they want to keep it that way, you know. And so from the first day, it's just always been an affirming community to live in, you know. And it was, I don't know, there was nothing that ever happened there that would make you think you wouldn't want to live there.
And to kind of follow up to that, any pushback from the activity that was going on the block, where if it was drugs or anything, as far as, because you're interrupting their money?
No, never.
Okay.
Never.
Yeah, and I think that part of it is that I don't know. There is a respect, you know. And the other thing is that people really start to you know, like criminal activity when there are lights and people are coming and going. It's too much stuff going on here, you know? And so people start dispersing. I mean, we didn't have to say anything. After a while, it's like, this ain't a good place to do business, right? You know, it's just like they got people coming over, they're outside, you know?
It used to be quiet.
You know, and people mind their business. But now people sitting outside and other people are coming. And so, you know, so like John said, things just happen very organically around that. And again, people know you're looking out for people, so there's a respect there. People know you're looking out for them. And you know what? I mean, the people that are on the corner selling drugs, they don't have no cars. You know, I mean, it's like people aren't sitting here like, and I'm not saying that there's not some big money being made, but most of the people in our neighborhood doing stuff, they're broke. You know, they don't even have their own place.
They're barely making it
themselves. They try to pay child support.
They're not paying they don't have their own place. You know, they living with somebody, so your girl, or, you know, we can tell. It's just like, I can tell sometimes seeing some of the folks walk down the street, it's just like somebody just got put out. You know, so it's not, people glamorize that. Watch a lot of TV, you know, and they think, you know, people riding around in Range Rovers and stuff, they, you know, they don't even have on nice tennis shoes.
I think when you grow up amongst those, because a lot of my friends sold and stuff, and you see the struggle, just because, again, TV, movies, all of that glamorizes it to where people think from the outside, oh, if someone's selling drugs, they must be making all this money. And a friend of mine I was in high school with, he said to me, he was like, have you ever met a broke drug dealer? He was like, because you're looking at one.
Now, they might be making money. They might be making a lot of money for somebody. And that's you know, but they're not making a lot of money themselves, you know, because they're like fourth tier.
Corner,
right.
The corner boys don't make money. They're not
the all the money to the person that's the drugs.
So, and you know, when you're poor and you're young, you know, and you're just trying to help your family, you're trying to help yourself. You see, you know, the little kid that used to live across the street right next door to 609, you know, they're going to school. Kids have on nice shoes and hoodies and all, cell phones and things like that. It's tough being poor, you know? And so we are trying to provide some alternatives, you know, to that, you know, and creating a healthier neighborhood where people aren't under so much duress all the time.
Because that's pressure.
It is pressure. Even if it's not in your house, if it's in other houses around you, it's stress.
Well, I feel like you guys are doing so much, because I do know you have the company Groundwater.
We have the Racial Equity Institute.
Equity Institute.
And we're a partner in the Groundwater Institute. So it's two companies that partner together.
Different companies. Okay, how long has that been happening? Because I feel like y'all are doing the most. general contractors, but you have your own businesses as well as buying the block.
Yeah.
So
it's all related. All of it comes out of our understanding of structural racism. You know, how contractors of color were denied opportunities to participate in the construction industry. So they always have to partner with a larger white company that had, you know, they may have worked really hard, but they also weren't excluded because of the color of their skin.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you've been able to participate in an industry and you work your way up and you become the largest wrecking company or the largest asphalt company or the largest demolition company, you're going to get all the work. So that means, you know, no matter how skilled and how credentialed, you know, other people of color owned businesses are, you can't penetrate that history, you know, just by getting a job. So, you know, we're advocates for businesses of color and especially in construction, that our work, our anti-racism work with the Racial Equity Institute and the Groundwater Institute are really about the history of redlining. It's about the history of racially restrictive covenants. You know, in Greensboro, you couldn't live in Irving Park. You couldn't live in Fisher Park. You couldn't live in College Hill if you weren't white.
Yeah.
You know, and then if you were black and you had to live, you know, you had to live in Southeast Greensboro, then, you know, there were decisions made to divest from those areas and invest in the county and invest in the suburbs. So you're dealing with neighborhoods that had covenants that said you couldn't live there. You're dealing with neighborhoods that said, we're not going to put sidewalks and road improvements and plant trees over here in your neighborhood. So all of our work is interconnected. You know, it's not construction and anti-racism in the neighborhood. It's all part of the same analysis.
Yeah, the house we live in, where we live in from, I think on Martin Street.
That's the color line. Our house is literally the color line in Greensboro.
Yeah. So the guy that used to live in our house was Mr. Windsor.
Yeah.
They named the Windsor Center after him. His daughter bought him that house, and he never got to live in it.
His sister in 1913.
His sister, okay, yeah. But anyway, she bought him that house, and he did a marvelous job of fixing it up. Real high ceilings, nice fireplace. And when it was time for him to move in there, the neighbors were complimenting him on the work. But then when they realized it was him moving in there, they did all kind of things.
They got the city attorney. This was in 1913. They got the city attorney. They went to Winston-Salem. They found an ordinance that said if you're a member of one race, you can't move into the neighborhood of another race. And because that was the white neighborhood, Bennett was on the other side. That's why Martin Street was the color line. And so they got this ordinance adopted in 24 hours. It usually took 21 days. But they got the ordinance adopted and told him he couldn't live there. So he moved over on Ash Street. And he eventually became the superintendent of the Black City Schools in Greensboro. But it's real, I think, ironic that I'm the first Black woman elected to the school board and am living in a house that this Black superintendent couldn't live in that long ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that all of this was interconnected in that type of way. But I do want to get into the diversity training. How did that idea come up? I feel like I had your business partner, Monica. I think I'm pretty sure she trained me when I was in Gifford County schools. So how did that all happen? Yeah,
well, she was the one. There was a community. Nettie Code is the person who got me into my first Undoing Racism workshop. So we don't do diversity training.
Okay.
Right? We do anti-racism and racial equity work. And so so she got me into a training and it was just transformative. It's just like I understood race in a way that I never, ever have before. I always thought that, you know, issues of race were around discrimination and hate and bigotry and ignorance. And what I learned is that you don't have to be intolerant. You don't have to hate people for this thing to operate because you don't have to have any bad intentions. It was just so institutionalized that it produces things without that malicious intent. And so Monica was the trainer in my first workshop. And so a lot of people that went to workshops like I did started organizing and put a lot of pressure on Guilford County schools to create an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And they did in 2004 because we didn't have one when I was elected to the school board. So that was the first thing. And then they hired Monica as the first director of that center. And so they developed their own training and then they were doing those trainings in the school system. I was a trainer for another organization out of New Orleans called the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. They do undoing racism workshops. And so I started organizing trainings for them because after I went to one, I wanted everybody else to go. I wanted my mom to go. So I asked them, I said, when are you coming back? And they said, well, whenever you organize a training. So I just started organizing trainings. And then after about 20 trainings, they asked me to be a trainer. And I didn't want to be a trainer. I just wanted people to go through and learn what I learned. And so I became a trainer and worked with them until 2008. And then I started the Racial Equity Institute with Suzanne Plissick. And she's a longtime organizer here, a white woman that's just been amazing and courageous and steadfast and diligent around racism. And so she and I started the Racial Equity Institute in 2008. And then when Monica retired from the school system in 2017, she came to work with us.
So the Racial Equity Institute, what is all of that involved in as far as within the community and what you're doing with that? Because we saw like the virtual trainings and things of that nature online, right?
Yeah. So we started in 2008 and we really started the organization because we were working with a company, an organization in Durham. Suzanne was working with a company called Dismantling Racism Works that was founded by Tema Oken and Kenneth Jones. And so Suzanne was training with them, and one of their white trainers went to go get their PhD, so they asked Suzanne to come and train with them. And then their black trainer left, so Suzanne said, hey, can you come help me finish up these few contracts? And I said, sure. So I learned their process. And what we thought we were closing out a contract, we made some tweaks to the curriculum, and then people started calling us saying, can you do another one? Can you do another one? So we created the Racial Equity Institute because we were making so many changes. We didn't want to change their material. So we created some new material and we started training, and then it's all word of mouth. People would come to the 2-day training. It was in person. And then they would organize another one and another one and another one, and it caught on like that. And so now we work all over the world. We started doing virtual during the pandemic. Somebody called us. We didn't know. I did my last training in Montgomery County, Maryland in March of 2020. And in July, someone with a Fortune 100 company called and said, can you do a workshop virtually? And I'm like, I don't know. We hadn't done one virtually, but I'm like, we'll try. So we created the PowerPoint. We put the material online and started doing trainings, and they just took off from there. So we have
2 days. The training's still 2 days.
Yeah, we have a 2-day training, phase 1 training. We have a 3-hour groundwater, which is a presentation that looks at 3 observations. One says racial inequity looks the same across systems. So the same racial inequity you have in appraisals and loan mortgages and in healthcare, you have in education and housing and child welfare. The second one is socioeconomic status doesn't explain it because we see racial gaps even when people are on the same socioeconomic level. And the third one is that our systems play a role in these because you can change. When I came on the school board in 2002, we don't have the same superintendent. We don't have the same central office staff. We don't have the same board. You don't have the same teachers. You don't have the same students, but you have the same outcomes. So even when you move all the people in a system out and that outcomes stay the same, it says something about there's something in that system that produces these outcomes no matter who's in there.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what our groundwater presentation unpacks those 3 observations.
Thank you for informing me because it made it very simple. Because I was like, I see groundwater and then I see REI. So
it's a metaphor that we use to say that racism is not just individual. It's also not like lakes and rivers and streams. Right. It's in the groundwater. It's much deeper than that. So we use that metaphor to help people stay focused on and think about racism structurally, even when they see individual acts of meanness.
Yeah, it's almost like it's constant programming to stay in that.
It is.
That system that has been created.
That systems thinking, yeah.
And so what you guys do is kind of, you're opening the book of this is probably, you don't know it, but this is how you have been programmed to think this way. So you're automatically going to move in a different way than you would if you was open to knowing that you've been programmed. Because I've never felt oppressed or felt like I was, somebody can hinder me from getting things, but however, that's still realistically
success.
Right. I was like,
goals.
I can succeed regardless.
Right.
It was when people would point it out to me that made me go, oh, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that was happening because I was blinded to it. Yeah. I don't know. Ignorance might be bliss because I was,
you can be successful.
Yeah.
And people are, and we see that every day.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that race doesn't show up and impact your life outcomes. Like we said, we've seen people go from homeless to Harvard. We've seen people, change the trajectory of their life. And we also know that you're less likely to get aggressive recommendations if you discover a lump in your breast. We know that if you're credit worthy, you're more likely to get a subprime loan. And you can't see that happening to you because nobody's called you an ugly name. Nobody's behaved, discriminatory to you. And no one might even be, on the other side saying to themselves consciously that they're doing this. It just happens,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it happens in these very subtle ways that people don't realize. And it's not mean to say, oh, you didn't know you were oppressed. It's just like we might not know what's happening, who's doing it and who they're doing it to if we don't pay attention to the patterns and the trends and the outcomes.
Right. So how can, I'm not a part of any organization, but I would like to look at the training, phase 1 and phase 2. How do I access that?
There's an organization here that does the organizers for the trainings. A lot of organizations, St. James Church, Presbyterian Church on Ross Avenue organizes trainings. The Partnership Project, you can go and look at their website. They have trainings every month. They have an in-person one coming up in March.
Okay.
So the first one since the pandemic.
Okay.
Here in Greensboro.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And there are others virtually done. And we'll help you get in one if you want to.
Yeah, I'm very interested in learning more about.
Love to check in with you afterwards. See what it's like.
Yeah. But I want to go ahead and wrap it up because I know we got to get places.
We do.
We got to get
but
places.
Definitely mention it because I know we do have to wrap it up. But we talked about John. We did speak about your path and journey as far as what kind of created that change where you pivoted and went to I want to get to yours, so we're gonna have you all come back.
I know.
I want to know what sparked that for you. You just didn't step into it. There was things that kind of led up, and then you kept moving it into two of you united, and then you had that. So
because it sounds like you got kind of pulled into doing trainings, and then out of that REI came. So.
Yeah, there was that consciousness, but I think what you were just saying is that there are a lot of questions I think we both had because we both grew up, your parents, wanting you to live in a nicer neighborhood, go to better schools. And then, when you wondered why, Black people weren't doing well collectively, the answers that we got just didn't seem adequate. It's just like that, just can't explain it. And so I think we just kept asking, why things were so different. And I don't know, we just wanted something different for our kids. And I understand our parents lived really poor, struggling lives in these southern racist counties, both of our parents. And so it was really important to get out of that, and get in a better neighborhood. But it was also very stressful being in those places.
I can only imagine because it's one thing I always say, when people look at the two of you now, they see where you currently are. So you see the success, they see, the things you're doing within the community, but they don't know the journey. What you went through, all the ups and downs, the questioning, the decisions, the hard decisions. To say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put our money into this. We don't know if this is going to be successful, but this is what we should be doing. And let's do it. And I'm sure it's like, okay, the two of you sitting down having those hard talks, and you have kids. All of those things.
And John did a lot. He would want to go buy something, and I'd be like, "You want to get that now?" And he was full steam ahead.
One time
we were pawning stuff, paying bills, gold.
Yeah. I wasn't pawing nothing. She was pawning stuff. We're going to make it happen one way or another.
And see, to me,
that works, though. We're going to make it happen. I'm going to pawn some stuff and make it happen.
And those are the things that, people to me, like, people need to hear those things because at so many points within our journey, we start to question: should I keep doing this? Things have now gotten really tough right now. I could do this over here and feel safe and secure, but that's not really what I want to do. This is where I feel like I should be doing, but it's such that path is a lot of work to go down that path, and this is a lot. This path, this is paved. I can just easily take it, but here, like you were saying, like they haven't laid out sidewalks or nothing, so you got work to do over here. And just to hear,
there's no retirement when it comes to this, because I heard my minister say, somebody asked him, when will you go retire, minister? He said, you don't. You die on your post. You die making sure that the people and your children behind you and your community raise up. So we got our grave doing this.
Now that is living. That is true living. And when you said earlier that it's like breathing, that it really hit me, because that means you never leave your mission. You never leave. But for someone to know what their mission is, this is a lot. The piece of the
I didn't know it was a mission. It was just.
But I also think we believe in the agency of Black people. It's just like we just do, and we believe we can do this. We believe that we can create strong, healthy, safe communities where we are.
Right.
And we believe that.
You believe it.
And if you believe that, it just manifests.
Got it. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
That was a good note to end on. But I do need, if someone wanted to reach you on social media, I don't know if y'all have social media or not.
But we're on Facebook.
If you want to,
we're not,
just throw it out there. This is the platform.
It's time to reach out to you and let you screen them. And then if you think it's somebody you want,
we're definitely going to highlight it.
We'll give y'all address when we get offline so y'all can drive by.
Okay, that'll work. That'll work.
We'll give you a tour of what we, some of the things that we're doing. We still
we'll be glad to take you in some of the houses
where we're getting ready to go on. Do some. We have like an Airbnb at one of our properties and things of that nature. But a lot of times it's just for the family and for people in the community.
I'm gonna have to rent it one day.
Yeah, you gotta come check it out.
This is in the neighborhood. I went and looked at a home yesterday or the day before yesterday in Jamestown, because I was telling y'all at the Continental Club, I don't know if you remember or not, but I'm in the market of trying to buy, and the neighborhood was great and I liked it, but then y'all's voices kept on sticking in my mind, because I haven't looked at any of you guys' property yet, and I remember you saying you may be a candidate of wanting to come over into the neighborhood you guys are in.
Trust me, we like 3 blocks from downtown, and that's gonna be, you're gonna hate you didn't move.
Yeah, you don't want to wait till it gets all built up, and then everything's all jacked up, right?
Yeah,
it's like, oh my God,
told me. But I wanted the comfort.
That's right.
It was one of the things. I bought a church. In that church, I think it praised for about $90,000. That was a couple of years ago, and then the city sent me the county sent me my taxes for that church. Now, $400,000.
Wow!
So I cash all that in, and I can pull $1 million out of all my property, and then we can do this thing over and over and over.
So we can keep buying and renovating for people who can't get a construction loan.
How did y'all learn
then we can do that. It was just like one at a time.
We got sons, and them boys are smart.
They are smart.
Okay.
But anyway, but we'd love to have y'all come by and check it out.
So many questions.
I do.
This is one of those 2-hour shows we will have to do.
Okay.
All right, you guys have to come do the walking tour.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, you can come. Yeah. So then that way you'll have a basis for your questions and stuff for the.
Okay.
If you want to have us again, then we'll just
You'll also continue to come down to the Continental Club on Thursday and Friday nights, because what happens is we're having a lot of.
Well, no, because Tiffany was just like, don't tell too many people. Because last time there were too many people there. It's like, this used to be our spot, right?
Like, what is happening? There's more people.
I need to get, because I only got out there once. When you twice. Yeah. You told me about it, and I remember she was like, told me, she was like, don't you be.
Don't tell us about it. That's right. We got to vet.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Okay, it was the right people.
Look, it was really cool the other night.
That's the car dealership we met in there. Our daughter ended up buying a car from him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, this thing is so organic and it's just.
Yeah. This past Thursday, it's interesting because there were some fiddlers who, weren't able to practice where they normally practice. So they're, in the fiddling culture, it's mostly white and, just fiddlers. Yeah. And some of the black guys were over there playing with them too. But anyway, and then you got, the sort of black R&B over here. And so that exchange, it's a beautiful thing.
A melting pot, right?
Yeah.
And they got a little art gallery. They had a art show.
I went there when the lady.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, thank y'all for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Kurt has a band, and he will be playing in the future at the Continental.
Oh, yeah, Kurt. You got to check it out. Yeah.
Kurt's so humble.
It's a great vibe.
Yeah, you're going to like it, Kurt. You're going to like it. The band members will like it. What's the name of your band again?
It's a band I just joined recently, but it's called Fomance.
Fomance? Okay.
What kind of music?
Like indie pop rock. I sent Tiffany some links. I can shoot it over to you guys.
Great. We'd love to have
that. We heard Honky Tonk last weekend. So.
Yeah. So we got Honky Tonk, Fiddler, R&B.
Yeah.
Nice.
Basically, March we're available. So if there's a day.
Yeah.
March.
That would be great.
Yeah, I've been talking back and forth. I'm not sure who.
How many piece band?
Over the Facebook page. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we'll talk to him.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So
thank you guys for coming.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
We do need you to sign our table.
Yes,
cute.
Yes.
Oh,
I guess hold on, I'm gonna video it. And it's right at 2:00. See, we do so good.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna put. Everybody calls me Mom.
I like
kids in the neighborhood, the young people, the young organizers, and they call him Soldier.
And Soldier.
They call him Soldier.
I ain't gonna do that.
Well, you know what?
I was gonna put Soldier, but I'm gonna leave that.
No, but you know what? The young guys in the neighborhood, they call all the women queens. If you pull up, they're just picking up habits, just language and stuff that's real beautiful. Because they see him doing it, because he calls us first lady queens, he calls us all that stuff. So a lot of the young guys
I've been doing it so long, I don't have to think about it. I'm not superficial with it.
I don't mind you doing it if you're not superficial. There's be some men out here. They just
had that conversation.
But trust me, if they're starting it, they got to start somewhere.
That's true.
Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah.
That's how I be feeling. Like you might just fake it just to, get in my draw.
Oh no. That's another show.
That's another 3-hour show.
No, thank you.
3 minutes.
Right.
That too. But thank you guys for watching another episode of Barbell Speaks. You can reach us on. I'm gonna let you go ahead and throw out social media.
All social medias, Apple, Anchor, Spotify. And as always, any questions, comments, suggestions, you could reach us at barbellspeaks03@gmail.com. And YouTube as well. Forgot to throw that one out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you guys.
Yes.
Till next time.
All right.
We out. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.